Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're doing something a little different. Usually when we talk about professional skills or life hacks, we focus on things like productivity, leadership.
How to organize your digital life, that kind of thing.
Exactly. But today we are tackling a topic that I think for a lot of people literally triggers the fight or flight response in the human brain.
Oh, absolutely. It is probably the single most avoided social interaction for most adults. I've seen stats where even, highly successful CEOs often dread it.
We are talking about negotiation, and I have to be honest with you, right out of the gate, just saying the word makes my stomach tighten a little bit. I think for most of us, negotiation conjures up this very specific image. It's a boardroom, maybe a car dealership.
Right.
It's two people sitting across the table, arms crossed, just like trying to screw each other over. It's war in a suit.
That is the Hollywood version, 100%. It's the Wolf of Wall Street model. We're just conditioned to believe that negotiation is a zero-sum game.
Right. If I win, you have to lose.
Yeah, if you get a dollar, that is a dollar that I just lost. It's inherently adversarial.
Exactly. And because we see it as a battle, we either armor up or, and I think this is more likely for most of us, we just avoid it entirely. I saw a statistic recently that said a huge percentage of people never negotiate their salary.
Never.
Simply because the anxiety of that conversation outweighs the actual desire for more money.
It's a tragedy, but it's a predictable one. I mean, if you think the only way to negotiate is to be aggressive, and you're not an aggressive person, you just opt out.
You just don't play.
But today, we're going to completely dismantle that entire framework. We are diving deep into a book called Ask for More by Alexandra Carter.
And Carter isn't just, some theorist writing from a beach house. She is a heavy hitter.
She really is.
She's a clinical law professor and the director of the mediation clinic at Columbia Law School. She's mediated hundreds of conflicts, from messy divorces to massive corporate disputes.
And what I love about her work, and why I think this book is so critical for everyone listening, is that she redefines the fundamental definition of the act. She argues that negotiation is not a battle.
Okay.
She defines it as steering a relationship.
Okay, I have to pause you there. Steering a relationship, I'm going to be the skeptic for a second.
Go for it.
That sounds nice. It sounds very soft. But if I'm trying to get a contractor to fix a botched tile job in my kitchen, or I'm trying to get a 20% raise, I don't really care about steering a relationship. I care about the result.
Right.
Is this just, a euphemism to make us feel better about conflict?
It's a fair pushback, and it does sound soft on the surface. But Carter is using the word steering in a very mechanical, almost nautical sense. And this brings us to the central metaphor of the book, which is the kayak.
The kayak.
And this isn't just poetic fluff. It's basically a physics lesson.
Okay, the kayak in the sea caves. Walk us through this.
So imagine you are in a kayak, and you're navigating through a really complex system of sea caves. The water is the relationship, or the situation, or the deal.
Right.
Now think about the physics of a kayak in the ocean versus, say, a car on the road.
Okay, so in a car, if I take my foot off the gas and my hands off the wheel, the car, it eventually stops. I stay in my lane, more or less.
Correct. Friction stops you. But in the ocean, there is no stopped. There are currents, there are tides, there's wind. If you stop paddling, which Carter equates to stopping the negotiation, just avoiding it, you do not remain stationary.
You drift.
You drift. You are at the mercy of the elements.
So if you aren't actively steering the current of the other person's decisions or the current of company policy.
Or market forces, whatever it is,
Ugh.
that determines your direction. You are effectively choosing to be flotsam.
Wow.
And in a sea cave, if you drift, you crash into the rocks.
That is actually a terrifying image because it reframes avoiding conflict not as keeping the peace, but as actively losing control of your own vehicle.
Precisely. We think that by not saying anything, we're just maintaining the status quo. Carter's argument is that there is no status quo. You are either steering or you are being steered. And to carry the metaphor one step further, you can't steer a kayak if you don't know the water. You need to know where the submerged rocks are. You need to know which way the tide is pulling.
And this is where the book really pivots. Carter says that most of us are steering completely blind. We're crashing into rocks because we aren't gathering information. We're just guessing where the rocks are.
And the reason we are guessing is because we don't know how to ask questions.
Which brings us to the core mechanic of the book. We have to talk about the difference between fishing with a line and fishing with a net.
Yes.
I love this analogy. Carter describes being on a beach in Fortaleza, Brazil. And she's watching these local fishermen, And she notices they aren't using poles with, a single hook.
Right. She had this childhood memory of fishing with a line, just sitting on a dock waiting for one specific fish to bite. But these professionals, they were using massive nets.
Huge nets.
They'd cast them out wide and just drag them in. And when they pulled them in, they didn't just catch one fish. They caught tuna, shrimp, stingrays, old boots.
They caught the entire ecosystem.
The entire ecosystem. And in negotiation, most of us are fishing with a line.
We really are. And in linguistics, you call this what? Closed-ended interrogatives.
Exactly. These are questions that start with verbs like is, do, did, or can.
So, like, did you like the proposal? Can you meet this budget? Is Tuesday good for you?
Yep. Those are lines. They invite a binary response, yes or no. Now, why do we ask these questions?
Well, it feels efficient. And honestly, it feels safer. If I ask, did you like the proposal? I'm trying to pin you down. I'm trying to get a confirmation.
We're trying to control the answer. You are fishing for a specific fish. You want the yes.
Right.
But think about the opportunity cost. If you ask, is the price too high? And they say yes, you have gained one tiny little data point. You know the price is too high, but you have missed the entire context. You've missed why.
You don't know if it's too high because they have no budget, or because they don't see the value, or because their boss just, cut their funding yesterday.
Exactly. You missed the stingrays and the shrimp. You missed the ecosystem. Carter argues we need to fish with a net. We need to use open questions.
And these usually start with what, how, or tell me.
Tell me about your budget constraints.
Boom. That is a net.
It's a huge net. And when you ask that, you are surrendering control of the conversation for a moment. You don't know what they're going to say. They might tell you about their fiscal year ending. They might tell you about a competitor who offered a lower price.
They might tell you they have a hiring freeze, but a massive training budget.
That's the ecosystem of their reality.
Yeah.
And if you have that information, now you can steer the kayak. If you just have a yes or no, you're just paddling in the dark.
But the irony is, we fear the net because we fear the unknown.
Huh.
We think being a good negotiator means talking.
Right. Pitching. Arguing.
Carter says, actually, being a good negotiator means asking and then listening.
It's almost all listening.
So the mission of this deep dive is to hand you, our listeners, that net. We're going to walk through Carter's 10 specific questions, the Ask for More framework. But here's the structural twist that I really didn't see coming. You don't start by asking the other person.
No. And this is where most people fail before they even begin. Carter breaks the whole process into two phases, the mirror and the window.
The mirror is the first 5 questions. It's the self-interrogation you absolutely must do before you ever walk into the room.
And then the window is the 5 questions you ask the other person to see them clearly.
She uses this analogy of her grandmother's tomato sauce. You can't start the recipe when the sauce hits the pasta.
No, you have to start at the beginning. If you don't know what you want, what you need, what the real problem is, you can't possibly steer the kayak.
This connects so deeply to research by Dr. Tasha Eurich on self-awareness. She talks about external self-awareness, which is just worrying about how people see us.
Which is what we obsess over in negotiation. Do I look tough? Do I look smart?
Exactly. And we totally neglect internal self-awareness, knowing who we actually are, what we value, what we need. The mirror questions are designed to fix that.
You have to know your own currents before you can navigate theirs.
Okay, let's look in the mirror. Question number 1. It sounds so simple, but I have a feeling it's a trap. What's the problem I want to solve?
It sounds deceptively simple. Most people think, oh, I know the problem. The problem is I need more money. Or the problem is my boss is a jerk.
Right.
But Carter argues that defining the problem is 90% of the work. If you define the problem incorrectly or too narrowly, you will inevitably solve for the wrong thing.
She gives this famous business example here, Steve Jobs and the iPhone. But I want to really dig into this because I think we just take the iPhone for granted now. We forget the context of, 2002?
We do. In 2002, the smartphone landscape was, the Palm Trio and the BlackBerry?
The BlackBerry.
And the defining feature of a serious business phone was the physical keyboard, those little plastic chiclet keys.
Right. So if you were a standard executive at Apple back then, and someone asked, what is the problem we are solving, you would probably say,
You'd say, we need to make a phone that plays music. Or, we need to make a BlackBerry with a better screen.
which is just making a slightly better version of what already exists.
Exactly. That is defining the problem by looking at the competition. It's called incrementalism. But Jobs engaged in what we call first principles thinking. He looked at the device and asked, what is the fundamental barrier here?
And what was it?
He realized the problem was the keyboard itself. The keyboard was permanent. It was there whether you needed it or not.
So if you wanted to watch a video, the keyboard was taking up like 40% of the device.
Right. And if you wanted to dial a number, the buttons were too small. It was rigid. It was inflexible.
So he defined the problem as, how do we create an interface that disappears when we don't need it?
Exactly. And the solution to that problem wasn't a better plastic keyboard. It was a giant piece of glass controlled by the human finger, a multi-touch screen. That redefinition, the problem is the permanence of the interface, that created $1 trillion of value.
And if he had just defined the problem as, how do we beat BlackBerry, we might all still be using styluses.
We probably would be.
That's a huge corporate strategy example. But there's a more human example in the book that actually moved me more. It's about school attendance, the story of Haiti Chang.
This is a profound case study in framing. So for decades, schools defined the problem of kids missing school as truancy.
Which is such a loaded word.
It is a judgment wrapped in a noun. Truancy implies bad behavior. It implies willfulness. It suggests the kid is choosing to skip school because they're rebellious or lazy.
And if you define the problem as bad behavior,
the solution is obvious. Punishment.
Yeah, you give them detention, you suspend them, you haul the parents into court.
You create a whole system of deterrence. The system was designed to punish the bad choice.
But it wasn't working. Truancy rates were not going down.
Because the problem definition was wrong. Haiti Chang came along and reframed the whole thing. She stopped calling it truancy and started calling it chronic absence.
Okay, that sounds like a semantic trick. You know, garbage collector versus sanitation engineer.
It really does, but it's not just semantics. It's a functional shift. Chronic absence is a neutral term. It just means the body is not in the chair.
It removes the assumption of intent.
Completely. It forces the school to ask a data question. What is preventing the body from being in the chair?
They started fishing with a net.
Exactly. They stopped asking, why are you being bad? And started asking, what is happening? And when they cast that net, they caught something absolutely heartbreaking. They found that in many of these districts, the kids weren't rebels. They lacked clean clothes.
Wow.
They were sharing one pair of jeans among 3 siblings. And if it wasn't their day for the jeans, or if the jeans were dirty, they stayed home because they were ashamed.
So the solution to truancy is police. The solution to chronic absence due to lack of laundry is a washing machine.
That's it. The schools installed industrial washers and dryers. They let families do their laundry for free. And attendance rates in some of those schools jumped from 46% to over 80%.
That is the power of the mirror. If you define the problem as my kid is lazy, you yell at them. If you define the problem as my kid is struggling with material, you get a tutor.
The definition dictates the destiny. And this is why Carter warns us against asking why in this self-reflection phase.
Wait, really? I always thought why was the most important question. Why did I do that? Why is this happening?
In negotiation and even self-reflection, why is actually a trap. Why tends to look backward and assign blame. Why did I mess up? Why are they being so difficult? It puts you on the defensive. Carter suggests swapping why for what instead of why did I do that, and ask what factors led to that decision.
It turns a judgment into a data-gathering mission.
Yes. So for you listening, the actionable step here is write down your problem, summarize it in 1 sentence, and then, this is the ticker, flip the negatives to positives. Don't focus on the rocks. Focus on the shore.
So instead of, I don't want to be underpaid anymore, the problem to solve is, how do I secure compensation that reflects my market value?
It just changes your brain chemistry from defense to offense. It's a forward-looking posture.
Okay, so we've defined the problem. Now we move to mirror question number 2. What do I need?
And this is where we have to get really clear on the difference between wants and needs, or in negotiation terms, positions versus interests.
Okay, give us the breakdown.
A want is a specific demand. It's your position. I want $100,000. I want the corner office. I want you to paint the wall blue.
Right.
A need is the underlying driver. It's your interest. Why do you want the $100,000? Maybe you need security. Maybe you need recognition for your work.
Carter breaks these needs down into tangibles and intangibles.
Tangibles are the easy stuff. Money, specific dates, a title. But the intangibles, respect, fairness, autonomy, reputation, those are what really drive the deal. We often fight over the tangibles when the battle is really about the intangibles.
She tells the story of Walden, a startup founder. This guy was driving his team absolutely nuts. He was obsessing over hitting this one specific sales number in the Midwest region.
Right. He was micromanaging. He was screaming about this number. And when Carter asked him, what do you need? He just kept repeating the number. I need 5,000 units sold.
That's a position.
That's a want. Exactly. So Carter dug deeper. She fished with a net. She asked, what does that number give you?
And that's where the breakthrough happened.
He finally realized that he didn't actually care about the revenue from the Midwest specifically. He needed to prove traction to a specific group of investors who happened to view the Midwest as a bellwether market.
So if he could win there, they would invest.
Yes. So his need wasn't sales. His need was investor confidence.
And once he realized that, the world just opened up.
Totally. He saw there were 10 other ways to demonstrate traction to those investors that didn't involve killing his team over one specific metric in one specific region. He could show them customer testimonials. He could show them retention rates. He could show them pre-orders.
By clinging to the want, the number, he was stuck. But by identifying the need confidence, he became flexible.
That is the golden rule of negotiation. Be rigid with your needs, but be flexible with your wants.
I love the hat technique she brings up here for figuring out your needs. This is especially useful for people who, feel guilty asking for things for themselves.
Yes. We all wear multiple hats in life. Parent, employee, citizen, friend. Carter talks about Keisha, a mom who is negotiating an IEP, an individualized education program for her daughter.
Which is a super high-stress situation.
Oh.
She's sitting at a table with teachers, administrators, specialists. She feels outnumbered.
And she feels defensive. But she stopped and asked herself, what hats am I wearing right now? First, obviously the mother hat. She needs her child to be safe and cared for. Second, the advocate hat. She needs to ensure the school is following the law and providing the right services.
But then she realized she was wearing a third hat.
The educator hat. Keisha was a teacher herself in a different district. And she realized she needed to respect the teachers across the table. She knew how hard their job was.
Recognizing that third hat must have changed her entire tone.
Completely. Instead of coming in scorching the earth, demanding rights, she approached them as a colleague. I know how hard this is. I know your resources are limited. But here's what my daughter needs to succeed.
It changes the whole dynamic. The teacher stopped seeing her as a problem parent and started seeing her as a partner.
It's a huge shift.
There's one more exercise in this section that I think is brilliant, but it requires a lot of courage. It's the worst thing exercise.
Oh, this is the one that makes people squirm. You have to ask yourself, what is the worst, least flattering thing I could possibly need right now?
Because we like to think our needs are all noble. I need fairness. I need quality. But sometimes,
if we are brutally, brutally honest, we need to feel like we won. Or we need the other person to admit they were wrong. Or we need revenge.
I need them to apologize and crawl a little bit.
Exactly. That is a human need. It's ugly, but it's real. And if you don't acknowledge that ugly need, it will sabotage you. It will come out as passive aggression. You'll reject a perfectly good offer just to spite them.
So the mirror allows you to look at that need and just say, okay, I see you.
You name it to tame it. You say, okay, I have a need to punish them, that's valid, but it doesn't help me steer the kayak toward my actual goal. Then you can set it aside.
Speaking of feelings, that leads us right into mirror question number 3. What do I feel?
The dreaded F word of business.
Right. We are taught to leave emotions at the door. It's not personal, it's business. But Carter says feelings are just data.
They are undeniable drivers of behavior. The whole idea that we can be rational actors and just turn off our emotions is a biological fallacy. We are emotional creatures who occasionally think.
So if you ignore your feelings, they don't just go away.
No, they just hide. They become a submarine that torpedoes the deal later.
She suggests managing anxiety by splitting it into 2 buckets. Substance versus process. This was a real light bulb moment for me.
It's a very helpful diagnostic. You have to ask yourself, am I anxious about the deal? Is this the right price? Is this the right house? Are the terms fair? That is substance anxiety.
And that's solved by information.
Right. You need more data, you need to do more research, you need to talk to an expert.
But then there's process anxiety.
And process anxiety is, I hate conflict. I hate asking for money. My stomach hurts. I'm afraid they'll yell at me. That is about the act of negotiating.
And you solve that differently.
You solve that with preparation. You solve that by role-playing. You solve that by power priming, which we'll get to in a second. But if you confuse the two, if you think you're worried about the price, but you're actually just scared of the conversation, you will walk away from a good deal for the wrong reason.
There's a great story about a law firm here that illustrates how feelings impact strategy. Stephen, a senior partner, and Craig, a junior partner.
A classic hierarchical conflict. So Craig, the junior guy, he went rogue. He filed a case without getting approval from the senior partners. In a law firm, that is a massive breach of protocol. It exposes the firm to all sorts of liability.
So Stephen, the senior partner, finds out he is understandably furious.
Right. His initial reaction is the standard one. Storm into Craig's office and just tear a strip off him.
But Stephen is a master negotiator. So he stops, he looks in the mirror, he asks, "What do I feel?"
And what did he find?
He found two things. First, he felt disrespected. He felt his authority was being undermined. And second, he felt fear. He was afraid the client would be angry.
By identifying I feel disrespected, he realized that was about his ego.
Exactly. And by identifying the fear, he realized that was the real business problem. So when he walked into Craig's office, instead of screaming, he said, "Craig, I'm feeling really frustrated because we have a protocol for a reason, and I'm worried about the client's reaction."
He led with the feeling.
Yeah.
As data.
And because he didn't attack Craig's character, Craig didn't get defensive. Craig was able to explain, "I know, but the deadline was tight, and I was trying to save the client money by avoiding a redundant review."
It turned out Craig had a good intention. A flawed execution, but a good intention.
They ended up fixing the protocol instead of firing a partner. Because Stephen acknowledged his own feelings first, he could communicate them as data, not as a weapon.
It's so powerful.
Moving on to mirror question number 4. This is where we pump ourselves up. How have I handled this successfully in the past?
This is based on this fascinating research by Adam Galinsky regarding power priming.
This sounds like something Tony Robbins would say, power priming. What's the actual science here?
It's a neurological hack. Galinsky found that when you recall a specific time in the past when you were successful or powerful or competent, your brain chemistry actually shifts.
No way.
Yeah, your testosterone, the dominance hormone, goes up slightly. Your cortisol, the stress hormone, goes down. You become more cognitive, more articulate, and less anxious in the present moment.
So before I walk into a salary negotiation, I should sit in my car and think about what a time I won a race.
A time you felt competent. It doesn't even have to be related to negotiation at all.
Yeah.
Just accessing that memory of I can do hard things primes your brain for success.
But Carter takes it a step further. She says you can transfer specific skills from that memory.
Right. She mentions Andrew, who was negotiating a big compensation package. He was terrified. He had never negotiated for that much money before. He felt like a total imposter.
So he couldn't look back on a past salary negotiation because he didn't have one.
Exactly. If he asked, when have I negotiated a CEO salary before? The answer would be never, and then panic.
Right.
But Carter reframed it. She asked him, what are you good at? And Andrew was an incredible researcher. He could build these complex, data-driven cases for projects.
So he realized, wait, I am a researcher.
He transferred the identity. He realized, I can use my research skills to build the case for my salary, just like I build a case for a project. He stopped trying to be a shark and started being a researcher, and he crushed it.
That's the data generator aspect of this question. You aren't just giving yourself a pep talk. You are mining your own history for strategies that worked. Oh, last time I succeeded in a tough meeting, I called the key stakeholders individually beforehand. I should do that again.
It turns your past into a playbook. It's so practical.
Okay, final mirror question number 5. What is the first step?
And note that she doesn't ask, what is the plan? She asks, what is the first step?
This is for when you're paralyzed by the size of the mountain.
Exactly. Negotiation paralysis. I can't start because I don't know how it ends. Carter calls this building momentum. There's a story of a journalist who wanted to write a book. She had this massive idea, but she was totally overwhelmed by the concept of writing a book. It felt like climbing Everest.
So she was procrastinating.
Endlessly. So Carter asked her, what is the first step? And the journalist realized she didn't need to write chapter 1. She didn't even need a publisher yet. The first step was just write the author bio and the market analysis. The boring, non-creative stuff.
Small, manageable chunks.
Once she did that, she had momentum. The kayak was moving. And it's so much easier to steer a moving kayak than a stationary one.
There's a really fun technique here called the 3M method, or reverse thinking. If you are stuck on the first step to success, ask yourself, what is the first step to guarantee failure?
I love this one. It's so liberating. If you're trying to launch a newsletter and you're stuck, ask yourself, how could I guarantee this newsletter fails miserably?
Okay. I would send it to people who hate the topic. I would write it in all caps. I would send it at 3 a.m. on a Sunday. I'd make it boring and aggressive.
Perfect. Now you have a roadmap of what not to do. The first step to success is simply the opposite of the first step to failure. Okay, I will send it to people who are interested. I will use normal capitalization. I will send it on Tuesday morning.
It tricks your brain. Our brains are actually better at spotting danger than imagining success. So you're using that negativity bias to your advantage.
You're just flipping the script.
Okay, we have looked in the mirror, we have spent a lot of time here, and that's the point. The preparation is key. We know our problem, our needs, our feelings. We're power primed, and we have a first step. Now, we turn the kayak around. We look at the other person.
Welcome to the window.
The goal here is transparency. But before we even get to the questions, we need to talk about how we ask them. Carter gives us a tactical rule that I think is the single most important piece of advice in the whole book. Land the plane.
This is so crucial, and it is physically difficult for a lot of people.
Okay, explain what it means.
Think about how most people ask a question in a high-stakes environment. They get nervous, the adrenaline is pumping. So they say, so I was wondering, tell me about your project. I mean, specifically the timeline, because I was thinking we could maybe do it in July, but if not, August works.
We just ramble. We suffocate the question with our own anxiety.
We hijack the question, we give them the answer we want before they can even speak, or we justify why we're asking.
Carter says, ask the question, stop talking, land the plane.
Ask the question, and then silence.
Enjoy the silence.
Silence is a vacuum. Nature abhors a vacuum. If you ask, what are your concerns, and then you just shut up, the pressure in the room builds. The other person feels a psychological compulsion to fill that silence.
And usually what they fill it with is the truth.
Or information they didn't intend to share. If you keep talking, you let them off the hook. If you stay silent, you force them to go deep.
So, window question number 6. The first thing we say to the other person, tell me.
Again, the ultimate open command. Tell me about your view on this. Tell me your thoughts. Tell me what happened.
It's so broad. It feels risky.
It is the least risky thing you can do because it has absolutely no bias. Carter tells the story of Ben McAdams, a congressman from Utah. This is a masterclass in using tell me.
This was the homeless shelter issue, right?
Yes. Salt Lake City needed a new site for a homeless shelter. McAdams selected a site. The neighborhood went nuclear. I mean, pitchforks and torches. They were furious. They thought it would destroy their property values, bring crime.
So McAdams has to go to a town hall meeting in this neighborhood. He is walking into a lion's den.
A room full of angry, shouting constituents. Now, the normal political instinct says, defend your plan, show them the data, argue back, win the room.
That's the fishing with a line approach. Don't you see this is necessary?
Instead, McAdams stood up, took the microphone, and said one thing. Tell me your concerns.
And then?
He landed the plane. He stood there for hours. He let them yell. He let them vent. He didn't interrupt. He didn't say, you're wrong. He just took notes.
That must have been excruciating.
It was, but something magical happened. By the end of the night, the temperature in the room had dropped significantly. The residents felt heard. They realized he wasn't an enemy. He was a human being listening to them.
And what was the result?
Because he listened, he learned that their specific concern wasn't just homeless people, it was the size of the shelter. They were afraid of a massive warehouse of people.
So they collaborated.
They pivoted. Instead of one massive shelter, they designed a homeless resource center. It was smaller, focused on services, not just beds. The community actually accepted it.
He got the shelter built, but he only got there because he started with, tell me.
And the most powerful follow-up to tell me is 3 simple words. Tell me more.
It's the easiest way to keep the net open. Just keep pulling on that rope.
Once they have emptied their bucket, once they have told you their story, you move to window question number 7. What do you need?
We are back to needs versus wants, but for them. And specifically, there is a nuance here about needs versus rights.
This is a legal distinction, but it applies everywhere. Rights are what you are entitled to legally or by policy. Needs are what will actually satisfy you.
The comedy duo story illustrates this perfectly.
Yes. A husband and wife comedy team. They have a very distinct act. Suddenly, they see a promo for a new show on a major TV network, and it looks suspiciously like their act. Same title, similar premise.
They're being ripped off, so they lawyer up.
They sue for trademark infringement. They are screaming about their rights. We have the right to this intellectual property you stole from us.
And the network executive is bracing for a massive, multi-million-dollar payout battle.
But the executive was smart. Instead of fighting the lawsuit on the merits, which would have cost millions in legal fees for both sides. He sat them down and asked, "What do you need?"
He moves past the right to sue and asked about the human need.
And what did they need? Did they need $5 million? No. They needed credit and legitimacy.
They were struggling artists.
Exactly. They wanted to book more gigs. They needed the industry to take them seriously. They needed their name on the screen.
So the network didn't pay them a huge settlement?
They gave them a consulting producer credit on the show. Do you know how much a credit costs a TV network?
$0. It's pixels on a screen.
$0. And they gave them a small consulting fee. The couple was thrilled. They dropped the lawsuit. They got the legitimacy they needed. The network made the problem go away for pennies.
If they had stayed in the argument of who is right, they would have been in court for 3 years. By asking, what do you need? They solved it in a single meeting.
This is why you must separate the person from the problem. The person needs something. The problem is just the obstacle in the way.
There is a crucial follow-up question here. What would that look like?
Yes. If someone says, "I need fairness," you have to ask, what would fairness look like to you? Because your definition of fairness might be splitting the bill, and theirs might be you pay for everything because you earn more.
You need them to visualize the solution for you.
You have to make it concrete.
Window question number 8. What are your concerns?
This is the code for what are you feeling without having to play therapist.
It's safe mode for emotions.
Exactly. If you're negotiating with a hard-nosed CFO and you ask, "So what are you feeling right now?" They will look at you like you have 3 heads. They will just close up.
But if you ask, what are your concerns regarding this merger?
They will pour their heart out. "I'm concerned about the timeline. I'm concerned about the culture clash." Concern is a business acceptable word for fear.
Carter warns about the no concerns trap. When someone says, I have no concerns, but their arms are crossed, their jaw is tight, and they are looking at the floor.
This is where you have to be a detective. You have to trust the eyes of the body over the words from the mouth. People lie with words. They rarely lie with their posture.
So how do you call them out on that without being aggressive?
You use what we call a label. You just say gently. You say you have no concerns, but you seem a bit hesitant. Help me understand. You invite them to correct the discrepancy.
There is a great story about Rahul, a startup employee. He felt his CEO was ignoring him. He was convinced the CEO hated him.
Rahul was ready to quit. He thought the CEO is icing me out. But before he quit, he asked the CEO, "What are your concerns right now? Not about me, just in general." The CEO admitted he was terrified about the company's cash burn. The company was running out of money. He wasn't ignoring Rahul because he disliked him. He was ignoring everyone because he was obsessing over the bank account.
That changed everything for him.
Completely. Rahul could pivot from, "Why don't you like me?" to, "Oh, you're worried about money. Let's look at the budget together. I can help with that."
It turned a relationship conflict into a problem-solving partnership, all because he asked about concerns.
It creates empathy. It's really hard to be mad at someone when you know what keeps them up at night.
Window question number 9. How have you handled this successfully in the past?
This is the counterpart to asking yourself the same question, but here you are empowering your adversary.
Which sounds so counterintuitive. Why would I want to remind my opponent that they are good at this? Shouldn't I want them to feel weak?
No, that is a rookie mistake. You do not want to negotiate with an insecure, cornered person. Insecure people are irrational. They lash out. They change their minds. You want to negotiate with a competent, confident person. You want to turn them into a partner.
The contractor Storysmith and Rosa. This is a classic construction nightmare.
It was a total disaster. The project was over budget, way behind schedule. The contractor, Rosa, and the client, Smith, were at each other's throats. Litigation was looming. The relationship was toxic.
So Carter was brought in to mediate.
And instead of focusing on the current fight, she asked, "You two have worked together on other apartments before. How did you handle those successfully?"
And they had to just stop screaming and remember.
They remembered, "Oh, yeah, back then we had weekly walkthroughs. We had a payment schedule that was tied to milestones."
They realized they didn't actually hate each other. They just had a broken process this time.
Exactly. The question reminded them that they could work together. It gave them a blueprint. Let's just do what we did on the 85th Street project. It de-escalated the conflict instantly.
So simple. Do what worked before.
And if they say, "I've never handled this before," you use the Andrew strategy we talked about. Well, you haven't handled a merger, but you have handled a complex team integration. How did that go? You helped them find their own competence.
Finally, window question number 10. What is the first step?
Co-creation. If you tell them the first step, it's an order. If you ask them for the first step, it becomes their idea.
Buy-in.
Huge buy-in. People support what they help create. There was a law firm where morale was in the toilet. The associates were quitting left and right. Management was panicking.
And management probably wanted to implement some expensive top-down retention program.
Right, let's hire a consultant. Let's do a big retreat. But instead, they just asked the associates, what is the first step to fixing this?
And do they ask for double salaries? A 4-day work week?
No. They said, we want a lounge with a coffee machine.
Seriously, a coffee machine.
A place to hang out. They felt isolated in their offices. They just wanted a sense of community. It was cheap, easy, and symbolic. It said, we hear you.
If management had guessed, they might have bought expensive ergonomic chairs that nobody actually cared about.
Exactly. By asking, they saved money and solved the real problem.
Now, I have to ask about the counterpunchers. The people who just shoot down every idea you have. We all know one.
The no people.
You suggest A, they say no. You suggest B, they say no. How do you handle them with this question?
The strategy is, stop giving ideas. You are just feeding their negativity. Instead, you ask them for the first step. Okay, I hear that my ideas aren't working for you. What do you think the first step should be?
You put the ball in their court.
If they have no ideas, they lose the right to complain about yours. You force them to contribute or step aside.
And what if their first step is crazy? Carter mentions the taser example.
Yes, sometimes people are emotional. They'll say, my first step is I want to taser that guy, or I want to sue them into oblivion, or I want to fire everyone.
And you don't just say, no, that's a bad idea.
No, because no creates resistance. You land the plane and you ask a follow-up. You accept their premise for just a second to test it.
Okay. How does tasering him help us achieve your goal of moving on with your life?
It forces them to do the math on their own idea.
They have to process it. Well, I guess if I taser him, I'd go to jail. So I wouldn't be moving on. I'd be stuck in court for years.
You let their own logic dismantle the crazy idea.
Exactly. You don't fight them. You let the reality fight them for you.
This has been wow. Let's just unpack the big picture here. We have 10 questions, 5 for the mirror, 5 for the window.
And notice what we didn't talk about today. We didn't talk about bluffing. We didn't talk about anchoring high. We didn't talk about good cop, bad cop. We didn't talk about power poses.
We just talked about asking questions.
Negotiation isn't about being the smartest talker in the room. It's about being the best asker. It's about creating transparency.
The goal isn't just winning in the sense of, crushing the other guy. It's about more.
Yeah.
More value, more trust, better relationships. If you treat negotiation as steering the relationship, you are building a future with that person, not just extracting value from them. You are kayaking with them, not trying to sink their boat.
So, to everyone listening, here is your challenge. The next time you feel that tightness in your chest, that fight or flight kicking in because you have to negotiate with your boss, your spouse, or your contractor.
Stop talking. Don't prep your argument. Look in the mirror first. Define your problem. Ask what you really need. Then look through the window. Ask, tell me. And then, for the love of everything, land the plane.
Silence is your friend.
It really is. It's the loudest tool you have.
I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We talked a lot about business and conflict today. But think about the conversations you've been avoiding entirely. The ones where you think, I can't bring that up because I don't have the solution yet.
Oh, that's a good one. We wait until we have the perfect answer before we even start the conversation.
What if you don't need the solution? What if you just need the right questions to ask the other person so you can build the solution together?
That takes all the pressure off. You don't have to be the wizard. You just have to be the explorer.
Exactly. Go paddle that kayak. Ask for more. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.
See you next time.